welcome back to the front line, guys. I'm so glad you guys are back at the cabin with me, like we do every week. Let's pull up a chair and come on in the cabin. If you notice this week, I actually got a picture of the cabin for you guys, um, and the hummingbird feeder, and you can kind of see part of my outdoor kitchen and my rock garden in the front, and the hill has an amazing amount of rocks up there, guys. So when I get time, I like to go up the hill and collect rocks. They call it rock hounding out here, and you'll spend a lot more time looking down than up anyway, right? Because we're looking for all kinds of different wildlife, which I didn't grow up with in New York. In Brooklyn, we may have had like a stray cat, you know, a dog out back, and that was the extent of it. Okay, that was the extent of our wildlife. But out here, I've got, oh gosh, rattlesnakes. We've got tarantulas. We've got Gila monsters, which look just like how they sound. Okay. We've got coyotes. I've been told, we've got pumas, mountain lions, all these great stuff. And people say, well, how do you get used to that? How do you come from Brooklyn, New York, and get used to all of this, these dangerous creatures, right? Because not only do we have rattlesnakes here, but we have the most dangerous, venomous snake of the pit viper family, which is called the Mojave. I had a run-in with one, and let's just say I was good. I'm here, right? Okay, so listen, when you live in the city, I tell people when they call me and they live in the city and they're like, how you doing it? I mean, truthfully, you have a rattlesnake living right next door to you, probably, or probably have a tarantula living. And I don't mean a literal one, but I mean like in character, right? Because, we're not tribed up yet. We're not, in each other's company. So for the most part, if we're in these cities, you know, um, this is what we have to contend with, right? Is that right next door is, uh-oh, look, my headphones did that, guys. No, we don't want to watch anything. We want to come out of that. Oh, look at that, talking about empty churches. That's hilarious. Right, guys, we know that, daggone it, that empty church thing made me forget what I was talking about just now, guys. Anyway, so I just want to thank you guys for tuning in this week. I hope you guys had a great week. One thing I wanted to add to our weekly meeting is I realized that I have like a wealth of information that could be helpful. That's what we were talking about, guys, coming out of the cities, right? I have a wealth of information that I think could be helpful. I've been living off grid now, guys, for every bit of, I want to say 2 years. So I'm taking some of that knowledge and I want to share some of it with you guys whenever I can. So you guys that are looking to come out of the city and maybe, I don't know, maybe eventually buy land or tribe up with others, that eventually you'll know how to make it. Okay, guys? So I started back at the farm, as you guys know. I've been very vocal about that, right? And one of the things that I realized that I have some benefits there that I could be using to help me on the land, right? And one of the things that I realized is, I could essentially get free ice from my job. And I hadn't even thought about this. I've been stopping after work daily to buy a bag of ice. And if only I take a 64-ounce orange juice bottle and fill it with water and put it in the freezer at my job, I got free ice, guys. Not literal ice that I could put in a cup, but it can go into my cooler and keep all of my items that I need to keep cool. Like my yogurt or butter, things of that nature, right? My coffee creamer, y'all don't know, but I'm a big time coffee drinker, okay? Uh, Shout out to Abia. I know I should be drinking it without creamer, but I'm working on that. When I have to, I drink it without creamer, okay, guys? But when I don't have to, I need my creamer, all right? I don't call it Shamar She Brews and Bakes for no reason. That's what I'm brewing, guys. Typically coffee. I want to learn how to brew some mead, you know. So it's typically coffee, and the baking, let's just say it's not cookies, guys. Y'all know where I work at, right? I work on a cannabis farm, so I bake, and sometimes I do bake cookies, but so that bake could be either or, okay? So I'm welcoming you guys into some of my life, right? So there goes the name. But listen, we're going to go back to how we survive off grid for free, right? Well, somewhat. So like I said, I'll take a 64-ounce bottle that may have had orange juice or something like that in it, or cranberry juice, put water in that, and when I get to work, I freeze that. I don't have to pour that every day. I've got 2 bottles, so I'll swap out one daily. And that's my free ice, guys. I work 5 days a week, so I'm only buying ice now 1 day a week. Okay, it's saving me $10. Free power while I'm at work. Guys, I have battery packs, so I'm able to take my battery packs with me and charge them up while I'm at work, and I made sure to get those fast charging wires and even the fast charging port box so that things will charge quicker. Okay, guys, because we all know that time is of the essence. In 8 hours, it's really not enough time to charge up everything, right? So I'm usually charging that up, and that's all for free, you know. If I go to the gas station and I buy like a drink or anything from over by the like the warm section, I'll make sure to get like packets of mustard, packets of packets of mayonnaise, packets of mustard, sometimes packets of ketchup, because to buy those things daily, they don't really keep well. And where I live at in the desert, you guys know I'm in Arizona, Zion. Where I'm at in the desert, next week's going to reach temperatures of 104. So it's really hard to keep that kind of stuff. So it's kind of good if you get it. Now, we all know that if you keep buying those packets, though, that you're going to run into preservatives. So I don't want you guys to make a habit of that, okay? All right. So that's my quick blurb, you guys, to give you guys some pointers about living off grid, okay? So last week I told you guys that this week we're going to talk a little bit about the unseen war, right, guys? And I'm calling it that for a reason, right? I have my suspicions that like the real world kind of plays out in the cellular world, right? And I found some crazy facts pertaining to the different sexes, right? The different genders, right, guys? So, male and female. I know that we've been told that we have been created equal, but I don't. I don't want to say equal is the word we should be using. Um, we've been created with equal rights, is what I believe. But I don't think we were created equal because the creator father and the creator mother they don't have the same function. So if we are both made in the likeness of each one of those, then shouldn't our function be different, and shouldn't our our purpose, what we're driven for, it should be different, right? And I just keep thinking back to these scriptures that, you know, don't forsake your mother's Torah, cling to your wife. It was almost as if the Creator was telling us that there was this role for women that is not being shown to us in any of these institutions, and not in many of the camps either, guys. I just have to call it the way I see it, right? Because the Torah, um, has shown us in the past that women played a role, and women played a role in our societies, right? In Israel's societies. If you follow me on Instagram, I showed people that Shira, yes, the cartoon character Shira, um, she was actually fashioned after a Israelite woman who actually created, was it Beth Hebron, the upper and lower pools? Yeah, those were designed by a woman, guys, Shira, our kinswoman. So clearly, there are there are instances where I think women were playing a much greater role, and somehow we got placed on the back burner, guys. I have my theories, but I have to bring myself to that conclusion. And I have my theories too for someone I watch. But whenever I watch somebody, I like to make sure that I come to those conclusions myself too. I'm being more responsible now, guys, to do that. I hadn't always done that. And that's actually led me to follow some belief systems that had I read this book first, I would have never adopted those belief systems, right? Or had I read this book with the eyes that the creator has allowed me to have now, I wouldn't have adopted those belief systems. So, this week I wanted us guys to talk about the unseen war, because at a cellular level, guys, there are some things taking place. I'm hoping that in every episode, I don't have to necessarily go back to Genesis 3. Um, but if I have to, guys, I'm never mad at that, because every time I go back to it, I find something new, right? Like the word thou, right, guys? I take you guys possibly later on to Instagram if I don't make this take too long. We're already at 12 minutes, so I'm going to do my best not to let this take over an hour, guys, okay? So let's get into some things, right? The unseen war, right? Because Genesis 3 is in here, right? We know that in Genesis 3, that the serpent, Eve, and Adam, well, the serpent is cursed, but Eve and Adam are given punishments, I would say, right? Um, and I want to be clear, too. It seems to me like Adam is more banished rather than exile. But we'll cover that later on, guys. We'll get to that later on. Let's stay focused on the cellular war that's taking place, right? So we know that the serpent is cursed, that Eve is punished, and so is Adam, right? And, and in this punishment, specifically to the woman, let's go down to, well, let's start with when he asked, and he said, let's go in Genesis 3:11, and he said, "Who told thee that thou was naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat?" And the man said, "The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat." And the Lord God said unto the woman, "What is this that thou hast done?" And the woman said, "The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat." And the Lord said unto the serpent, "Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly thou shalt go, dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." Unto the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception in sorrow. Thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." And unto Adam he said, "Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, in which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life." Right? "Thorns and thistles shalt it bring forth to thee. Thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread until thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return." And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. And we know further down that it's Adam that's ejected from the garden, because we see him right here. We see the word him, and we see that he drove out the man right here, right? So we know these things right here on the front line, right, guys? All right, let's go back up real quick to verse. Let's go to verse 15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, right? Okay, right? There's a lot of responsibility being placed on the woman, right? We found this out, guys, the other day, right? Now, in our last episode, we talked about epigenetic memory, right, guys? And the more we talked about it, and the more I considered it, and the more I considered the anatomy of both the male and the female, as far as the male being responsible for gender selection of males, and as far as the female having the egg, I don't know why I just kept feeling like, well, if the sperm is changing this creature into a male, I've heard people say it's female first, so I just kept feeling like epigenetic memory must be passed on through the mother, that it wasn't something taking place through the male. And I was right, guys. Look, right here. It says the Max Planck researchers found that, remember this gene right here, guys? We talked about this in our last episode, the H3K27ME3 modifications labeling chromatin DNA in the mother's egg cells were still present in the embryo after fertilization, even though other epigenetic marks are erased. This indicates that the mother passes on her epigenetic marks to her offspring. Guys, this is why it's her seed, because there is something that's going to be passed on genetically. Remember, guys, I showed you Ezekiel 17 that the Creator was cropping from a branch, right? Check this out, guys. Let's go on over here to, look, here's another one that supports what I just read, guys. And this is in the process of meiosis. Let's go with meiosis. The larger amount, I'm in the second paragraph, guys. I'm down here at the lower paragraph. The larger amount of cytoplasm, fair use for purposes of education. I almost forgot, guys. The larger amount of cytoplasm contained in the female gamete. Remember, the gamete contains the words grinding and gnashing in the etymology, okay, guys? This word, the gamete, the Gamete, okay, is used to supply the developing zygote with nutrients during the period between fertilization and, I think it's, what does that say? Implantation into the uterus. Interestingly, sperm contribute only DNA at fertilization, not cytoplasm. Therefore, the cytoplasm and all of the cytoplasmic organelles in the developing embryo are of maternal origin. This includes mitochondria, which contain their own DNA. Remember what I showed you guys in Genesis 3:11, the enmity, right, guys? Okay, let's keep moving forward. Look, the branches, guys. This was a crazy little article that I found, right? About the mitochondrial Eve. And as far as it contains the word branches, right, guys? So this would have been great in Ezekiel 17. I'm going a little bit off of our folder that has the unseen war, but it's a little difficult for me to drag these pictures over into those folders. I could do both in a PowerPoint, but I haven't had a lot of time to put that together, guys. For Solomon, I will. But for this, guys, just bear with me, okay? So I'm going through my screenshots of valuable articles I found this week regarding the mitochondria, guys. and they contribute to the unseen war, okay? Because by me going over their value, you're going to see how mighty they are when we talk about when they go toe to toe with the Y cell, okay? All right, but listen, you notice how we keep hearing these, you hear that cricket, guys? He's somewhere in my room. We keep hearing references in Torah as it pertains to a vine, a vineyard, a branch. Usually they're always in the plant world, right? In the horticulture world. And check it out. I'll bring this article in when we focus more on the mitochondria again, but I want to just show you guys this briefly, okay? Okay, so this article said this doesn't mean that everyone's mtDNA today looks exactly like that of our ancestral Eve. Because of the spontaneous mutations in mtDNA that have occurred over centuries, researchers can map different branches off of the main trunk of our mtDNA family tree. That's the mitochondria, guys. Your mtDNA might have a pattern of mutations that aligns more closely with one branch, and your neighbors may align with another branch. Still, all branches eventually lead back to Eve. Check this out, right? But what happened to the mtDNA of all other Homo sapien females who were living at the time of Eve? Researchers explain that over centuries, their female descendants died childless or with only male children, thus their maternal line and its mtDNA ended. This is what they would like you guys to believe, because they really don't want you to believe that there was this first man and first woman creation. They just want you to believe that there was just this big old gene pool, right? But what they're saying here, as far as the maternal line ending, this may be true given the fact that, well, what did we see with kings? They were very obsessed to have male childs. Oh, God. They were very obsessed with having a male heir, a male child. Okay, they were, at least for the first child, right? Because that was the heir that was to carry on the patriarchal name. Okay. All right, guys, I want to come out of here and I want to go to some of these articles that pertain to the unseen war, right? Because now, like I showed you guys, a lot is being passed down through the maternal side. So anything epigenetic is being passed down through the maternal side to the female line, guys. This is not being passed down to the male line, because this comes through the maternal line. Remember, we just saw the photo of that article which told us that I don't want to go through my photos like that. But we just saw that photo that just told us that it's passed down maternally, guys. Do your own research. Please do. And you're going to see what I'm talking about. And then you will understand why this is her seed. Why we're looking for her seed. Why I showed you guys, and I still haven't dug on Sarah, but that the Creator says that Sarah's blessed. Okay? He says that I'm going to bless Sarah and through her give you a son. And mind you guys, that's after Sarah and Jacob. That's after Sarai and Abraham, because they aren't Sarah and Abraham yet. That's after they have that conversation, and Abraham has had this child with Sarah's handmaid, so Hagar, with her handmaid. And Sarah says, "Let the Creator judge between you and I." I noticed that, but I don't know what it means yet, guys. I haven't dug on it much more. We just found it last week, right, guys? That Sarah is the one actually that is saying is going to be blessed. I mean, we get nations and we get people through both lines, right? That's told to Abram too, right? But the word specifically that Sarah is going to be blessed is said from the Creator to Abraham as it concerns Sarah. And that is after Sarah says, Let the Creator judge between you and I. I did notice that Sarah dies first, though. That I did notice. But anyhow, guys, let's move on. Let's go on over here to talk about the differences between men and women, right? Because there are some major differences, okay, guys, genetically between the two of us. So let's get into it. Every time I come to you guys, there's a windstorm, huh? Okay, so this article is called Differences Between Men and Women Are More Than the Sum of Their Genes, right? I'm not going to go too deep into this article because if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the article that compares the men to, I hope I'm wrong. Let's see, close that out. Chimps. Yeah, I didn't like that. So I'm not going to go too far into that because I think, listen, it's like a box of crayons, right? To me, if you open up a box of crayons, um, at any point, uh, you can make a couple of different colors because everything is there. So I think that there's this gene pool that the creator pulls from to make everything. So, of course, let's go back up to the top. You'll see what I'm talking about. So, gender differences and sexual preferences are frequently a point of conversation. What produces the differences between men and women? Are they trivial or profound? Are they genetic or environmental or both? Some people claim that, genetically, men are more closely related to male chimpanzees than to women. Others discount sex differences because they're determined by a single gene called the SRY on the Y chromosome. Okay? But the key to differences between men and women and chimps lies not just in the number of their different genes, but in what these genes do. So a little background. This is going to give you guys the reference where I was talking about the box of crayons, okay? Okay, a little background. Let me first explain a bit about genes and chromosomes. Mammals share pretty much the same collection of about 20,000 genes. That's that box of crayons. It's just a big old box that the creator pulls different pieces, and he uses this to make this and this to make that, but it's only a big pool of this he's pulling from, which is that 20,000. Okay? Each of these is a short stretch of DNA whose base sequence is copied into RNA, then translated into protein, right? We heard a lot about RNA the last, 2-3 years, haven't we, guys? We won't talk about it, but you know what I'm talking about. Our 20,000 genes are arrayed on about a meter of DNA, the genome, which is cut up into smaller pieces, which we can see down a microscope as chromosomes when they coil up to divide. The base sequence of genes can differ slightly from person to person and differ a lot from species to species. We all have 2 copies of genomes, one from mother and one from father. So there are 2 copies of each chromosome, except for the sex chromosome. Women have 2 chromosomes. Men have a single, and the male Y. The genetic difference between men and women lie in the sex chromosome. Okay, guys? It's not in the specific genome, okay? It's not in our overall. It's specifically as it pertains to the underlying components of gender, okay? And our function. All right. We all have 2 copies of the genome. Oh, I read that already. Sorry, guys. The X bears more than 1,000 genes, but the Y has only 45. Do y'all see that? The X bears. Look at how significant. What a big, big difference, guys. You think this ain't a war internally? You know, if Y was a deck of cards, right? And like I said, if you start out, I don't even know how many is in there. Let's just say 54. If you start out with a deck of cards, and every time you had to shuffle them, say you had to shuffle them say every 20 years you could give out cards randomly to everybody, and after that you had to shuffle them. And then after every time you shuffled, you had to throw away 4 cards. Every 20 years, you'd be throwing away four cards, four cards, till eventually you would have very little left. And this is exactly what it looks like has happened to the Y. The Y is down to 45, okay? Let's keep going. So the X bears more than 1,000 genes, but the Y has only 45, which are all that are left of a once ordinary pair of chromosomes that differentiated to be the X and the Y. One of these 45 Y-born genes, the SRY, determines that a baby with XY chromosome will develop as a boy. Do you see what they're saying right here, guys? This is the part that I had been hearing before, too, that if this is not secreted, you remain a woman, right? That's what made me think that the egg cells are female. But that's a whole nother story, guys. And that's what made me say that, okay, then epigenetic memory has to be being passed down maternally. Okay, guys? Right, because the SRY just turns you into a boy. Okay, guys? I'm not saying this. Science is saying it right here. Let's keep going. But the Y chromosome is not all male specific. Check that out. 24 genes in its top little bit are shared with the X. These are unlikely to cause differences because they're present in both sexes, guys. Differences and the Y chromosome. The rest of the Y lost most of its genes over, they're going to say 150 million years, blah, blah, blah. But a few still cling on. But they're fatally damaged by mutation. So we can't count these inactive pseudogenes. Instead, there are only 27 active protein coding genes on the male-specific part of the Y. Okay? Although several are present in multiple copies, most of which are inactive. Guys, this is versus the 1,000 genes right here in the female X. The man has 27. They're beefing it up right here because they're including some of the X chromosome in that number. But let's keep going. Active protein coding genes on the male-specific part of the Y, although several are present in multiple copies, most of which are inactive, okay? Nor can we count all 27 because at least 17 have copies on the X chromosome too. Most of the 17 remain dedicated to their original purpose, backed up by their X copy. Only 3 have diverged to acquire male-specific properties, such as making sperm. Guys, men have 17 genes that are functioning to support it in its task, which is way different than the task of the female X, right? That egg cell, which we're going to get into that too, so let's keep going. The remaining 10 genes on the Y have no copy on the X. These were probably very useful to men, but they were probably inactivated. They're on the broken X. Yeah, that's my suspicion. They're specific to males. Sorry, they're specific to males, so could contribute. Oh no, what did I just do? Oh, I pressed this other article. Sorry, guys. They're specific to males. We're right here, guys. All right. They're specific to males, so could contribute to differences between men and women. Some of them start off as copies of genes on the X, but diverge far from their original function and acquire male-specific roles. I don't know what's causing some of these to do that. I have my suspicions. All right. 3 originated as copies of genes on other chromosomes that were important for male function. Okay, guys? Let's talk about the junk DNA on the Y. A lot of DNA on the Y chromosome doesn't code for proteins and has been regarded as junk sequences that were left over from old viruses and repeat many times. Okay? This is why I think the word germ is associated with gene, and I think it's associated with Adam, and it's associated right here with the viruses. You see that? Old viruses, okay, guys? Okay, so what they're telling you right here is that it doesn't code to protein. All right, so what does that mean? proteins, just like when you eat a meal. You know how they say that you really need to have it top heavy in proteins? Okay, so apparently we aren't much different than our cells. Our cells require a lot of protein, okay, guys? However, those proteins actually provide us with instructions, right, as to what that cell will be doing, okay? Now, here's the catch. The mitochondria actually is in charge of making sure that all of these things function and are fed, okay? That's not what the Y does. So let's read and find out what the Y does. Looks like there's a lot of junk coded on it, it's saying, okay? Old viruses, hidden in this junk are sequences that are copied into long RNA molecules. That's funny, but are not translated into protein. Keep thinking about that word RNA, guys. We've heard that a lot. We're identifying more and more of these non-coding genes, some of which have remained the same in all vertebrates and presumably have some function. At least some non-coding Y genes may have important roles in regulating sex differentiating genes, though that has not yet been demonstrated. Excuse me, guys. I am so thirsty. Okay, so let's read further. Even more intriguing is new evidence that among the junk DNA on the Y chromosome, yes, guys, I thought this was fascinating. This is what I wanted to get to. I'm going to highlight this whole sentence here because I really need you guys to keep up with us with this. I've been all over the place, so I hope I'm doing a really good job of showing you that this is an actual unseen war right here. Okay, guys, let's read it. All right, even more intriguing is new evidence that among the junk DNA on the Y chromosome of the bull are sequences that work to skew the ratio of sperm that bear the Y chromosome, favoring the birth of male cows. When these sequences are deleted, the skewing goes the opposite way, favoring female cows. There is something on the Y that within its junk DNA is actually tipping the scales in favor of male birth. Okay, guys? And I wonder if this is why the Y is being wiped out. Was it infiltrated? Was it somehow infiltrated to favor male births? And so the creators, it's being wiped out? Is that why you guys are down to such a minute amount of just 17 genes? I don't know, guys. I wish I had some other people with scientific minds to help me out with this. If you're listening and you can, let's get together because something took place on the Y chromosome, guys, okay? It's pretty apparent, but the Y-def is checking it, right? The Y-def is keeping that under control is what it's looking like to me, guys. All right, let's go to the next paragraph. This suggests that the Y chromosome, too, has some tricks to get preferentially into sperm. It seems there's an arms race in the genome of every mammal as these sexually antagonistic genes battle it out. There are many sexually antagonistic genes. Oh, we ain't going to read that one. Anyway, so let's keep going. The X gene and the sex difference. A rarely recognized difference between the genome of men and women is the different copy of the more than 1,000 protein-coded genes on the X chromosome. There are 2 copies of these in women and 1 in men. Differences in X gene dosage have been ignored because they were supposedly compensated for by a mechanism that silences all genes on the whole of the X chromosome in female, known as X chromosome inactivation. This mechanism silences one or the other X in the cells of the embryo, and this silencing is passed on into groups of cells into the adult. This epigenetic silencing doesn't change the base sequence of the DNA, but it changes the way DNA binds together, the molecules, so it can't be copied into RNA, and so produces no protein product. I bet you that's very important. So guys, I want us to at some point get into this X inactivation, that's basically saying, remember, the woman has two X. So she's not going to function with both of those genes directing traffic. You know, if this were traffic and you had two people out in the road directing traffic, it would be pretty messy, wouldn't it, guys? So the creator only has one traffic director out there. So only one of those X's is going to be functioning and operating in a manner in which it's going to be directing traffic. Okay, the other one is silenced. But I'd like to find out more about that, guys. More about that inactivation. But that to me is going to focus more on the X. So let's get out of here and let's keep on pushing and finding out the difference in the function between the X and the Y, right, guys? Come on. Okay, guys. So right here, I just tried to find as many articles as I can to see what was the difference in the function, right? And a lot of them kept talking about a battle, right? Which I was kind of seeing one already being waged, right? We already saw that in Genesis 3, this reference to a battle of the seeds, right? So why would there not be a cellular war going on, right? It was already telling us that. New DNA sequencing data reinforced the notion that the X and Y chromosome, which determine biological sex in mammals, are locked in an evolutionary battle for supremacy. David Page, a biologist who directs the Whitehead Institute, blah, 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 we don't really care about that. His colleagues explore the Y chromosome, we're over here, guys, carried by males of several species, mapping stretches of mysterious, repetitive DNA in unprecedented detail. These stretches may signal a long-standing clash of the chromosome. Page presents the results last week at a meeting, all right? And he used humans, primates, all right, a mouse, and a bull named Domino. Okay. The idea of conflict between the chromosomes has been around for a while, says Tony. But the sequence and data from the bull's Y chromosome suggests that the phenomena is more widespread than previously thought he had. The mammalian Y chromosome has long been thought of as a sort of genomic wasteland, usually shrinking over the course of evolution and largely bereft of pertinent information. Page's work has helped to change perceptions of the Y chromosome by revealing that it contains remarkable patterns of repeating sequences that appear dozens to hundreds of times. But we know what these sequences are, right? But the structures of these sequences and precise measures of how often they repeat have been difficult to determine. Standard sequencing technology often cannot distinguish between long stretches of genetic code that differ by a single DNA letter. Letter by letter. Page and his collaborators avoided this problem by using what he calls super resolution sequencing. It's a technique better known as single haplotype iterative mapping and sequencing, or SHIMS. We'll have to look into that later on, guys, which can detect such minute variations between lengthy segments of DNA. The team sequenced many large continuous stretches of Y chromosome and carefully scrutinized the areas that looked as if they had overlapped. They found that repeating structures make up 24% of the accessible DNA in the human Y chromosome and 44% of that of the bull. Overlapping structures, guys. I've been trying to build y'all up to this because I knew what this was. Come on, let's keep going. And then the Y chromosome of the mouse, which is much larger than that of a human. What? The Y chromosome of a mouse is larger than that of a human? Okay, guys. Repeating structures make up almost 90% of the accessible DNA. The intricate patterns, which often contain palindromes, sequences that read the same in forward and reverse order, carry 3 families of protein-coding genes. What the genes are doing and how they got there remains a mystery, however. Guys, you see what Eve is doing right here? Didn't I tell y'all she's saving Adam? Did I not tell you that she is saving Adam. It is no mystery on the front line, because on the front line, we discovered this already. We figured out, one, the name Eve, the name Hawa, they both read the same forward and backwards. It's a palindromic word, okay? But not only that, there's these sequences that are within the Y. Remember when you threw those 4 cards away every time you shuffle the deck? Okay, so let's say every time you shuffle the deck, you threw away 4 cards. Say your mother showed up with a deck, and every time you did that, she gave you 4. She's saving you. So you're still in the game, ain't you? That's what Eve is doing for you. For anyone carrying that Y, every time the deck is shuffled and you lose 4, she comes in with 4 and gives it back to you. And these it's a mystery. They don't know where this is coming from. Okay? Let me read that to you again, because I think that was a very powerful paragraph. And then the Y chromosome of the mouse, which is much larger than that of a human, go figure, repeating structures make up almost 90% of accessible DNA. The intricate patterns, which often contain palindromes, which are sequences that read the same in forward and reverse order, carry 3 families of protein coding genes. What the genes are doing and how they got there remains a mystery. We're going to have to look more into these 3 families of protein coding genes, guys. We're really going to have to. In mammals, the X and Y chromosomes emerged relatively recently from a regular pair of chromosomes before differentiating from one another. Didn't we say that, guys? Didn't I say that Adam and Eve started out, the Y, now it's all shriveled up, right? But the Y was not. That's why I really believe the Y was originally an X. And I think the leg fell off of it. Can I prove that? No. Anyway, let's keep reading. They share many of the structures that came from their ancestral source, but these repetitive regions seem to have come from somewhere else. Ha! The repeated genes in the mouse Y chromosome do not resemble anything on the human Y chromosome, but they do have analogs on the mouse X chromosome and in the mouse, human, and bull. The repeat genes on the Y and X are expressed in the male germ cells that eventually produce sperm. Okay, guys, this is only the male human Y that is undergoing this. All right, tells you right here that the mouse and the bull, they weren't experiencing that, but somehow on the human, that there's these repetitive sequences that they just can't seem to understand where they came from. Repetitive regions, right? Huh. So is there an unseen war taking place, or am I making this up? Let's keep going, guys. Let's find us another article. The Y chromosome. Let's talk a little bit about the Y chromosome. I want to get into this because I talked to you guys last week about the fact that in war, in famine, in sickness, toe-to-toe, the man could not compare with the woman as far as mortality, right? And you see right here that the Y is linked to heart failure and cardiovascular disease. Okay? I'm just showing you guys that the Y is a damaged gene. Okay? But I don't want to read this one in this week's coverage. I don't even know why I put that in there. It's in there by mistake, I think, guys. Let's go to this next article, though. No, this one's going to close out on us. I don't want to go to this one. This is the one I want to go to. Because remember I was telling you guys earlier about how monarchies worked, right? How patriarchal monarchies worked, okay? This article talks a little bit about that too. And I think it's important for us to read this one, all right? Wars in clan structure may explain a strange biological event 7,000 years ago. Genetic data suggests there was a collapse in male, but not female, genetic diversity starting 7,000 years ago. The reason may be wars between clans structured around male ancestry. Starting about 7,000 years ago, something weird seems to have happened to men. Over the next 2 millennia, recent studies suggest their genetic diversity, specifically the diversity of their Y chromosome, collapsed. So extreme was that collapse that it was as if there were only one man left to every mate for every 17 women. Undergraduates up here show how social structure could explain a puzzle, genetic puzzle, okay? They were perplexed, right? They're perplexed by this, but we're not. All right, let's see what they come up with. Right here. The collapse, they argue, was the result of generations of war between patrilineal clans whose membership is determined by male ancestors. The outline of that idea came to this biologist, right? He said he was trying to figure out the origins of the Neolithic Y chromosome bottleneck. We'll have to look that up too, guys, right? The event is known. This event is known as the Neolithic Y bottleneck, all right? He soon shared his ideas with his high school classmate, right? And they were just kind of milling over what could be the reason. So basically, this article is just saying they were trying to figure out what could be the reason of the collapse of the Y at that time, right? So let's keep on going. A cultural culprit. It's not unprecedented for human genetic diversity to take a nosedive once in a while. But the Y chromosome bottleneck, which was inferred from the genetic patterns in modern human, was an odd one. First, it was observed only in men. More precisely, it was detected only through genes on the Y chromosome, which fathers pass to their sons. Second, the bottleneck is much more recent than other biologically similar events, hinting that its origin may have something to do with changing social structures. Certainly, the researchers point out social structures were changing. After the onset of farming and herding, about 12,000 years ago, societies grew increasingly organized around extended kinship groups, many of them patrilineal clans, a cultural fact with potentially significant biological consequences. The key is how clan members are related to each other. While women may have married into a clan, men in such clans are all related through male ancestors. Therefore, tend to have the same Y chromosome. From the point of view of those chromosomes, at least, it's almost as if everyone in the clan has the same father. Do you see that, guys? That's because everybody in the clan does have the same father, guys. Okay, let's keep on going. That only applies within one clan, however, and there still could be considerable variation between clans. To explain why even between clan variations might have declined during the bottleneck, the researchers hypothesized that wars, if they repeatedly wiped out entire clans over time, would also wipe out a good many male lineages and their unique Y chromosomes in the processes. To test the ideas, we're right here in computing clans. To test the ideas, researchers turned to mathematical models and computer simulations in which men fought and died for the resources their clans needed to survive. As the team expected, wars between patrilineal clans drastically reduced the Y chromosome diversity over time, while conflict between non-patriarchal clans, grouped with both men and women, could move between clans. They did not. Do y'all understand this? Do you understand what this is saying? The men have wiped out their own Y. Check this out. They sped it up. It says right here, through wars, with conflict. Yeah, right here. They fought. All these movies we watch, 300, all these movies that we like to watch, myself included. What was the one I used to like? Gladiator, right? We glorify these war movies, right? And look what they've been doing. They have wiped out their own Y. They've sped it up, guys, through patrilineal wars. But look what it says. Groups where both men and women could move between clans did not. Mm-mm-mm. That's crazy. So the war, remember I started this out, guys, by saying like the real life war imitates our cellular war. Well, the real life war sped up our cellular war. Well, the man's cellular war. That's what this article is saying right here. That through clan wars, the men sped up their death and reduced the Y significantly more. It was actually counterproductive to them for these patrilineal, all right? That's just what this is saying to us. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next article. That's crazy, guys, that through the wars, it was whittled down even more, guys. How much time do we have here, guys? I wanted to try to stay under an hour. Let's see if we can do this. This was interesting to me, guys. Let's read it. Competition, cooperation, and the selfish gene. All right, let's keep on going. Often labeled pop science, the selfish gene pulls together the gene-centered view of evolution. It's not really individuals being selected for in the competition for life, but their genes. Their individual bodies, the phenotypes, are simply carrying out the instructions of the genes. This leads most people to a very competition-focused view of life, but is that all? Listen, remember I told you that the instructions are carried out to the gene, right? And that's why one of the X's is turned off, because you couldn't have two people out here directing traffic. You only need one traffic director, okay? So let's check it out. More than 100 years before this selfish gene, Charles Darwin had famously outlined his theory of natural selection and the origin of species. We're all hopefully familiar with this concept. Species evolve over long periods of time through a process of heredity, variation, competition, and differential survival. The mechanisms of heredity was invisible to Darwin, but a series of scientists, not without a little argument, had it figured out. By the 1970s, strands of the protein DNA, which are called genes, encoded instructions for the building of physical structures. These genes were passed on to offspring in a particular way, the process of heredity. The advantageous genes were propagated in greater numbers, disadvantageous genes, vice versa. Disadvantageous genes, vice versa. The selfish gene makes a particular kind of case. Specific gene variants grow in proportion to a gene pool by, on average, creating advantaged physical bodies and brains. The genes do their work through phenotypes, the physical representation of their information. So basically, these genes will say, hey, okay, so say I lived in, well, let's say I'm here. And there are certain fungus that grow here in the desert, right? My body would say, okay, I need the genes that are used to the fungus that grow here in this desert. So let me grow more of these in proportion, because this is what this body that's going to be living in this desert is going to need to survive in this environment. Just like an animal, guys. Just like they say over time, the rattlesnakes, they're saying that rattlesnakes over time will, they're decreasing the rattle because they're starting to realize that, hey, when I rattle, I actually get killed, versus people stay away now. So now they're going backwards in their evolution, or maybe they're just evolving still, but it's a change in the rattle. Okay. That's basically what this is telling us, that there's a gene, a selfish gene, that will make sure that whatever component that the instruction is telling it to have at the forefront is going to be at the forefront. Okay, guys? Not all in the genes. Are we inheriting more than we think? A fundamental discovery about a driver of healthy development in embryos could rewrite our understanding of what can be inherited from our parents and how their life experiences may shape us. The new research suggests that epigenetic information, which sits on top of DNA and is not, so this is coming from your mother and it's sitting on top of your DNA, and is normally reset between generations, is more frequently carried from mother to offspring than previously thought. Didn't I tell you that, guys? Didn't that photo that I began with tell you that epigenetic memories are passed through the maternal line? So what do we got going here? We got epigenetic memory, we got inheritance, we got the creator in Ezekiel 17 cloning from a branch, and what do we have on the Y? Junk DNA. We have a Y cell that actually the Y chromosome in the male is actually smaller. The Y chromosome in the male human is smaller than the Y chromosome in a mouse. This is what we have. So we do have an unseen war, guys. Let's keep on going. Not just in what we read in the Torah. This is not just an unseen war in Genesis 3 and 11. This is an unseen war at a cellular level, guys. And it's a lot like what I believed it was. All right. So we know that a lot of this is happening on the maternal line, right? The study led by researchers from, we're right here, guys, from this Melbourne University. Let's close that out. Broadens our understanding of which genes have epigenetic information passed from mother to child and which proteins are important for controlling this unusual process. Epigenetics is a rapidly growing field of science that investigates how our genes are switched on and off to allow one set of genetic instructions to create hundreds of different cell types in our bodies. Epigenetic changes can be influenced by environmental variations, such as our diet, but these changes do not alter DNA and are normally not passed from parent to offspring. While a tiny group of imprinted genes can carry epigenetic information across generations, until now, very few other genes have been shown to be influenced by the mother's epigenetic state. The new research reveals that the supply of a specific protein in the mother's egg can affect the genes that drive skeletal patterning of the offspring. Check that out. Chief investigator, she said that this lady right here, I don't know what her name is, she says that the findings initially left her team surprised. No, I don't want to do that. It took us a while to process because our discovery was unexpected. Knowing that epigenetic information from the mother can have effects with lifelong consequences for body patterning is exciting, as it suggests this is happening far more than we ever thought. It could open a Pandora's box as to what other epigenetic information is being inherited. Yeah, I bet you they would like to know. So they could figure out what's going to her seed, right? I bet you they would like to figure it out. But they won't. The study led by these folks is, it's been published in Nature Communications. It was focused on a protein. Oh, check this out. The Hox gene, which are critical for normal skeletal development. Hox gene control the identity of each vertebrae during embryonic development in mammals, while the epigenetic regulator prevents these genes from being activated too soon. Okay, guys, so the X is doing a lot. The mitochondria is doing a whole lot. Like I told you guys right here, it's telling you it's passed on from the mother to the offspring right here. Mother to offspring. More frequently than previously thought. Let's go into this next article, guys, and we're going to wrap it up with this last article. I do believe the next set of articles will bring us into a different study. Let's see. 5 fascinating facts. Yes, I do want to end here, guys, because you know what? I think the Creator is, in life, the man has been excelled as the mightier of us two. In this world, he has been given kingdoms. And I think it's very funny to consider the fact that that article told us that the Y cell, actually, the Y male chromosome is smaller than the Y mouse chromosome. But look what we find out about the egg. Okay, so this is 5 fascinating egg cell facts, right? We're going to end it here. All right, we're talking about the unseen war. It's crazy to think about, but many of us know more about the eggs in our kitchen than we do about the eggs in our own body. Here are a few egg cell facts to get you started on your educational journey, which every person doesn't have an egg in their body, okay? It's just a woman, okay? It's just a female that has an egg. Egg cell fact number 1. The egg is one of the biggest cells in the body. Eggs are larger than any other cell in the human body at about 100 microns. In diameter, about the same as a strand of hair. That means you could, in theory, see an egg cell with the naked eye. The fact is that egg cells are about 4 times the size of skin cells and about 20 times the size of sperm. That's why, guys, when we saw this all in science class and we all were giddy and laughing, hee hee ha ha ha, because it was our first introduction probably to reproduction, right? And we weren't mature enough to handle that. But I remember very vividly thinking of the size of that egg cell and all of these sperm cells on top of that egg trying to break in there, right? Trying to get into there to break into that egg cell, right? And I remember thinking, wow, that thing looks so huge compared to the sperm cells, right? And what is this article telling us? That the egg is the largest cell in the human body. It's actually larger than a skin cell. Yes, the skin is the largest organ. The egg is the largest cell in the human body. Okay? So why is that? Why is the X chromosome? Why is the X in the mitochondria? Why is our egg? Why is that so huge in comparison to the Y chromosome that is shriveling up and dying? Well, I will tell you guys why. Remember, it's right here. It's right here in Genesis 3. It says, Genesis 3:19, in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. This was told to Adam before he was made to leave the garden. This is what's leading to the unseen battle, guys. This unseen war that's taken place at a cellular level. And every day I'm learning more and more about this war. And the more I learn, the more I will share with you guys. I'll come over here to the front line and bring it to you guys. Next week, I want to dive more into that, into the verse about branches, vineyards, and vines. Let's dig into that and let's see what the Torah is trying to tell us. Because Torah is telling us something that's not really probably mainstream right now. That's probably why you guys are tuned in. It's telling us something. So we need to pay attention to the details and pay attention to the fact that what we thought we knew, we definitely didn't know. You know, the whole idea that both Adam and Eve left the garden, it set us up for failure right from the start. So at least over here on the front line, over here in this cabin, we know differently. Thank you guys for coming on over to the cabin and seeing what we got going this week. Next week, let's talk more about these branches. Much love to you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.